Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about some of the best legendary lords in Total War Warhammer 3 for long campaigns. But before I go into the list for which I did a poll on, I do need to talk about two races which are not going to be included in this video. And that is the Warriors of Chaos and the Wood Elves. Both of them are strong races, both of them have good legendary lords, both of them have good unit rosters. They're all great. They're great in virtually every single way that matters. The problem is, from my perspective, and this is something that a lot of people have commented on for months and months, is that the Warriors of Chaos and the Wood Elves are incredibly boring to play. In the sense that, while they're great, well-designed, powerful economies, powerful campaigns, it just gets to a point where you're literally steamrolling from turn one. Like, take a look at Archaon. The only challenge he might face in his campaign, hell, the only battle he may have to actually fight during the course of his entire campaign is the initial army he has to deal with from the very start of his campaign over here. That is how broken the Warriors of Chaos are. And the only reason he may even have to fight this particular battle comes down to the fact that he's assaulting a fortified settlement over here. And even then, he doesn't have to, right? He doesn't have to, and this is on legendary very hot. Now, granted, there are some mods enabled over here in this video, but still, you get the idea. Outside of that, I will have no other challenge as Archaon playing in this entire campaign. And this applies to Archaon, this applies to virtually all the legendary lords of the Warriors of Chaos. They might have a couple of challenges, but beyond that, they're just going to steamroll the campaign. And what's annoying about them, like, you know, just steamrolling is one thing, but what's really annoying is having to deal with the vassal system because the AI is dumb as bricks. I think it would be more interesting, like, if we could actually take control of the main armies of a faction through the allegiance system, and it should be a lot cheaper. That would make these campaigns at least more interesting. Like, let's say you vassalize Grumgor. Hey, let me control Grumgor's army for a couple of turns. That would be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? For the Wood Elves, they have a similar situation, though they don't have vassals, but what the Wood Elves want to do is they want to engage in diplomacy, because they don't need the territory that they're taking outside of the big trees, so it's much better to just sell it to other factions in a Wood Elven campaign and make diplomatic deals with virtually everyone. It's a similar situation through different mechanics, to be clear, but I have found, as many other people have found, that is not an engaging campaign to actually go through. Like, there are many engaging races, even on this list. Actually, specifically on this list, the Warriors of Chaos and the Wood Elves are not especially engaging at the moment. If you find the idea of playing a steamroll campaign enjoyable, sure. But it's only going to last a couple of times until you really get bored of doing it. At number 5, we have Alarielle the Radiant. She is a complete powerhouse when it comes to a very, very long campaign. I mean, she can do pretty well in the short term, though she does have significant drawbacks as well to her campaign at the same time. I mean, look at this situation, though. I've got 4 armies over here, though I did just confederate Elfarian, 5 over here, and I'm building 2 more. Though I'm not going to be able to afford every single one of those armies, but I will certainly be able to afford quite a few of them. So what are the advantages in Alarielle's campaign? The High Elves are a good race, and they're certainly a race that does better the more you play their campaign. But what makes Alarielle special? What makes her such a powerhouse? Well, there's a couple of things. First off, there's the Defender of Ulthuan. Now, the Defender of Ulthuan is a major downside early on in your campaign, because you will have plenty of negatives. But if you get control over all of Ulthuan, or if the High Elves maintain control over all of Ulthuan, and you build trusts, then you're going to get control, growth, income, leadership, diplomatic relations. Now, in this case, I think that because I just confederated Elfarian, the trust that people have in me has gone down. I'm not quite entirely certain what works when it comes to trust, how trust exactly works. I know that you're in the negative if the High Elves don't have control over all of Ulthuan, But it does seem to be based on more than just that. But either way, you get a significant benefit later on in a campaign as you're building a massive empire. Like basically, if you can secure Ulf 1 and you're done with your confederations, you will be in an amazing place on the campaign map. That's just the first benefit, but honestly, it's more of a downside for quite a bit of your early game because it will vastly increase your construction costs of buildings early on in the campaign, though it will pay off in a very long campaign. The two biggest benefits, I would argue, in Alarielle's campaign, actually there's 3 big benefits in her campaign, but the 2 biggest by far and away are these. First off, she gets handmaidens at tier 3 as opposed to tier 4, in the sense that she only needs a tier 3 structure, which she can build in minor settlements as well to increase handmaiden capacity. That's the biggest benefit by far. The second big benefit is that she can recruit all of the Wood Elven units through a landmark that only she has access to if you're playing her in her campaign in the Gaian Vale. And that means that Alarielle, in a long campaign, like we're looking here 60 plus turns, she can get a Wood Elf army, and while it's certainly not going to be as good as a proper Wood Elf army, keep in mind that the High Elves have the economic possibility, with the exception of Orion, of course, they have the economic possibility to maintain vast armies. And consider combining the regular High Elven army with the Forest Spirits of the Wood Elves, like that just ends up being a ridiculous, insane level of power. And she starts with a unit of Treekin, so she's got a pretty powerful army from the very beginning. Now, the third thing that really helps her campaign is, well, beyond the fact that she leaves temporary benefits in every single region she traverses, so the power of nature, so she's going to have a lot of influence in her campaign. Maybe not as much as a Leaf and Arc can get through his assassination mission, though she certainly can hold her own with respect to that. But she's going to get growth, she's going to get control, she's going to get influence. She's all about maximizing control, which actually does matter in a High Elven campaign, because if you have 100 control, your economy gets a major boost in the provinces you do have under your sway. So that is a very significant benefit. But let's talk about handmaidens, because really it's the handmaidens that actually elevate Alarielle in an enormous, ridiculous way. But you need to understand first off, before I talk about the handmaidens themselves, how the High Elf economy works. It's based on trade, because they build trade resources. Like, look at me, I'm just getting a trade agreement over there with Cafe, and because I just did that, I can come over here. I'm surprised that the Centaur Lords are still alive, but I can get even more trade agreements with the Western provinces, and just keep my economy going in this particular situation. Though I'm probably going to have to disband an army over here, or maybe disband just all of these units and just transfer over the Spire Guard to Elfarion. Still, there is a absurd level of power through trade for the High Elves. But here's where Alarielle wins, hands down, against everyone. Everyone has access to handmaidens, but Alarielle gets them far quicker and easier. It's not just even tier 3, no. She gets quite a bit of handmaiden capacity, faction-wide, +2. You start with 1, of course. You get +2 for a faction effect, and then through tradition dictates, you're gonna get an extra 2. So you're looking at having 5 handmaidens, whereas most campaigns would struggle to even get 1 by this point, because getting a tier 4 settlement at this stage in the campaign is actually a pretty tall order. And here's where Alarielle wins down. She can get handmaidens faster than anyone else. She can get a lot more than anyone else. Every single handmaiden has the ability of getting the skill line. Now, you're going to have to sacrifice some combat ability, but handmaidens are not about combat. They're about the faction-wide buffs. So every single one of them, regardless of how you build, can get favored the V-Shot. That's 1 control. It stacks. That is where it gets ridiculous. Like, every single handmaiden can get more than anyone else. Like, you don't even need to bother with the control structures in an Alarielle campaign. You would still want to for the income, but you don't need it for the control, because you're going to get so much control in the long term from your handmaidens alone. And then you get the Diplomatic of the Everqueen skill line, which gives you a massive benefit to your empire. So a handmaiden at Diplomat gives you 2 diplomatic relations with High Elves, then 2 with all factions, and this stacks. And then you get 5% income from trade tariffs and 1 influence per turn. So you're going to get, if you build a massive empire with Alarielle, and this is what really a long campaign is all about, building a massive empire, having the capacity to do so. If you're building a massive empire, guess what? You're going to have a lot of handmaidens in this campaign, and each of those is going to improve your diplomatic relations, it's going to improve your trade tariffs, it's going to give you a significant benefit. Just to give you an idea, the Elven Embassy also gives you 5% income from trade tariffs. Now, the Elven Embassy is generally worth it in a province that has ports, sure. But if you don't have a port in a particular province, then usually it's actually worth it more to get the handmaiden structure and just get an extra handmaiden. It is that absurd. And you can also get Sisters of Avalorn at tier 3 as opposed to tier 4. So you end up in a situation like this, where I've basically gained control over the majority of Wolf 1. I've beaten Morathi's main army, and now I'm going to pay Be'lakor a visit, while Elfarian is going to pay Grom a visit to liberate Lyonesse. And then finally, if that's not enough, Alarielle can also do something that very few other people can. She can take over Magical Forests. Now, Magical Forests may not necessarily be beneficial in a lot of campaigns, but for the High Elves they are, because the High Elves want to get settlements that are high level, right? They want to get provincial capitals. That's what the Magical Forests are. So if you get all of Avalorn, if you literally conquer it, and you should, because there's a lot of money to be made to begin with, then you can get all the recruitment structures and a massive boost to your economy, because you can get the Elven Craftsman combined with the Elven Garden, combined with the Plaza, combined with the Elven Embassy. Yeah, it adds up. Like, just getting all these 4 structures alone in a settlement and also getting the ability to increase your hero capacity is a ridiculous amount of power. So Alarielle's benefits just all stack up to the point that she is absolutely insane as an empire builder in her campaign. And number 4, it is Oxyotl of the Lizardmen. Now, what makes Oxyotl so special as a Lizardman Legendary Lord, and the Lizardmen certainly do need a rework, but what makes Oxyotl so special is he gets so many rewards in his campaign that he more than makes up for any deficiencies that the Lizardmen do have. I mean, he starts in a relatively safe area over here in the Southern Castways, where his only major opponent is going to be Kairos, and to put it bluntly, while Kairos may have a better army in terms of auto-resolve, your army will absolutely annihilate them in an open battle. I mean, Oxyotl starts a war with a faction that has a Bloodthirster as a leader, and you just wipe the floor with him. But it's not about the starting position that makes Oxyotl so very strong. It's about how his overall campaign works out. He focuses on getting a skirmisher army of chameleon skinks and chameleon stalkers, which will kill every enemy in sight, especially the skinks, without the enemy even reaching them, because they can fire while moving. And he gets a major upkeep benefit, as well as various benefits to these units as they rank up. In particular, I'd say the most important thing is the speed and missile damage that these units will get as you level them up. So you're going to get a ridiculous amount of power for these units in Oxyotl's campaign. On top of that, and what's really important in any long campaign is climate suitability. Every climate in the game is suitable for Oxyotl. So hey, you want to conquer Archeon, you want to conquer the entirety of the Castways, you want to conquer the entire world, this is a campaign that's very, very well suited for doing that. And you might have an easy time of doing it as well, because while traversing the Castways may take a very long time, you don't necessarily need to just traverse the Castways. You can teleport around the map for various missions, and it seems like they fixed the missions. You won't get the doom stack from very early on in the campaign, so instead you'll get various missions to deal with various factions around the world, like, oh, beat up the vampires, beat up chaos, and you show up with the entire army at Archeon's doorstep to blow up his dark fortress and basically eliminate him from the campaign map. That's what Oxyotl does. And the thing is, when you teleport for a mission, you don't have to leave that area. You can just stay there. You can't instantly teleport back. You could at one point, that made that even more ridiculous, but now there's a turn cooldown on doing that. And these missions give you various rewards. Like, consider this: the initial mission I get here gives me 5,000 money to defeat my initial enemy, which you would do anyway in any campaign. That is how ridiculous this campaign is. You're not tied to any particular area of the campaign map. You can go paint the world in your colors, regardless of where you decide to go. You have the flexibility of going there. So there's a great deal of power. Furthermore, you have the sanctums. Now, the sanctums can give you various regional or provincial benefits in your campaign. So there is a great deal of power in that, but the most important thing is you can put a capstone of Topic, which gives you 10% award save for armies in the region. That alone is powerful enough. But this also puts it as a teleport pad, basically, for Oxyotl's army, because by default, you can only teleport to the missions you have and to your capital. You can teleport to the Godless Crater. But on top of that, you will be able to teleport to another sanctum that has a capstone to it. And you will build a huge amount of sanctums in a long campaign as you're getting sanctum gems. You just need to pick up those gems. You can get them through mission rewards. You can get them through passively for Oxyotl's special skill line, for ancient knowledge. So you'll be gaining a lot of sanctums that give you various benefits in the regions you're fighting. Like, let's say you have a mission to beat up Vlad. Okay, you beat up Vlad, then you build a hidden sanctum there. All you really need is vision. You build a sanctum in that area, and then you can potentially put a capstone in that sanctum to teleport there and just continuously harass Vlad, just as an example. It may be costly, but you certainly will be rolling in money in this particular campaign. Furthermore, another benefit for Oxyotl is that he gets, for a lot of those missions, he will get Blessed Spawnings. Now, Blessed Spawnings are not Regiments of Renown. The Lizardmen, if you have the DLC, have a ridiculous level of Regiments of Renown, but they're not Regiments of Renown. They're instead other types of units that you recruit for free. So, regardless of how much money, you can show up in a region, take a territory, recruit a lord, and fill that lord's army with a lot of these blessed units. So suddenly, you don't just have one powerful army in the region you teleport to, you can have 2 powerful armies, or even 3 powerful armies very, very quickly in that region. You can have 2 on the turn you show up there. You can have 3 in 2 turns, if you, of course, include the Regiments of Renown as well. But you don't need to own any other Lizardman DLC to make Oxyotl's campaign work. On top of that, he starts with the Skink Oracle, and because of the structure he starts with, spawn pools of the Braves, you can also get a Skink Chief. And I strongly recommend you do get the Skink Chief, though probably after you get the Never-Ending Chasm over here, like recruited over here. So you have our biblical level of power in Oxyotl's campaign, and it is fun. It is fun. It certainly can get a bit steamroly, but it remains interesting as a campaign just because of the wide variety of objectives you do have on the campaign map. At number 3, we have Morathi, the Hag Queen of the Dark Elves, the true queen of Ulthuan. Morathi has been a powerhouse legendary lord ever since Immortal Empires came out, and with the recent rework, she has certainly become a lot stronger. Now, she did come out last in the poll that I did, but that was before the patch came out today, the patch that has substantially buffed the Dark Elves, because now the Dark Elves can do this, instantly build structures over here. That is a fairly ridiculous level of power that the Dark Elves do have access right now in their campaigns. And it's only going to get even more ridiculous when you consider Morathi's campaign benefits. What makes Morathi stand out is the fact that she gets Slaaneshi corruption. So all of the control issues that you might have because of slaves, and even because of the difficulty penalty, are completely removed, or almost all of them removed. And she also enables attrition for non-chaos worshipping armies. So that is pretty damn strong to begin with. Like, the Slaaneshi corruption itself made Morathi the best legendary lord of the Dark Elves. Lokir is better in a short campaign, Morathi is much better in a long campaign. And with the rework, you no longer have to just use fight to death or anything like that. You can just literally print money with the open markets. Furthermore, she has a very powerful starting position over here in the Titan Peaks, and a very easy campaign situation. Look at this state of affairs. I've got 2 armies, one in a Black Ark, sure, but I've got an entire stack of units in a black arc. I've got a third army over here that's going to march east, and I'm going to build another army over here to potentially deal with rebellion, maybe deal with Skaggy, deal with other things. And I can then take these armies and then just literally make a beeline for Lothern by turn 30. And I've also annihilated the Sisters of Twilight main armies over here. Yes, armies. I've defeated 2 armies already, basically put them on the back foot. What's even more insane is just like Alarielle gets handmaiden capacity and recruitment in all provinces for her special skill line, so does Morathi get sorceress recruitment. You don't need to bother with the magic skill line with Morathi. What you want to do instead is you want to get the top skills over here, or at least some of these top skills, and also get absolute devotion to get minus 30% upkeep for her army, and also get a lot of post-battle casualties, slaves, and income from post-battle. It is pretty damn absurd when you add everything together with Morathi, and it makes her a complete powerhouse on the campaign map. At number 2, we have Drazoath the Ashen of the Chaos Dwarves, and honestly, this is my favorite campaign in the game at the moment, but he didn't win the poll. Another Legendary Lord did by quite a lot. That said, Drazoath is very, very impressive. Let's first start talking about starting position. The Black Fortress is a major caravan route, so you can earn a biblical amount of money early on in your campaign, and earning such a huge amount of money and crucially labor will help you build a massive empire on the campaign map. Then Drazoath, like all other Legendary Lords of the Chaos Dwarves, he gets the ability of settling in every single climate in the game, so he can build a fairly massive empire on the campaign map. Then he gets an armament output of 10%, and then an armament cost reduction of minus 10% for all unit capacity. So basically, when it comes to increasing unit capacity, he basically gets a 20% armament benefit. Furthermore, Drazoath gets 10% campaign movement range, upkeep for Kadai units, but if we look at his special skill line, he's going to get the construction time and construction cost benefit in the province he's in, an armament cost of minus 25% of increasing Infernal Guard and Infernal Ironsworn capacity in his campaign, income from cities and raw material output. He's basically buffing his entire economy by 10%. Then he gets an armament cost for increasing capacity of Kadai units. So he has 2 major armament cost benefits on top of the fact he's already building armaments. And he's absolutely insane in battle. The Flames of Asgore is one of the most powerful spells in the game, and he can cast it for very, very cheap. Like, by default, it's 18, but if you upgrade it, right, if you're looking at the Flames of Asgore, and you upgrade it, and you're looking at how much he's reducing that Winds of Magic cost, it ends up being very, very cheap. He has good item set bonus that reduces enemy leadership. He has good, these items themselves are pretty solid. The ward save for his entire army. Targeting range for Lore of Ashut spells, leadership, melee attack, Raven Scepter, which gives him magical attacks, weapon damage, and armor piercing damage, and melee attack. Like, Drazoath is powerful in battle. He's powerful as caster. He has the best economy of the Chaos Dwarves. I mean, Zaytan can get a more powerful economy, but Zaytan doesn't have every caravan, or virtually every caravan of cafe rolling past his main settlement building. Drazoath does. On top of that, he gets a nuclear weapon from the very start with the prototype Mega Mortar, which gives him the Dreadquake battery ability with 2 uses. It is a nightmare to deal with Drazoath when he's controlled by the AI, because he's going to use those nukes against you. Finally, and number 1 with almost 50% of the votes, it is Ikkit Claw. Like all other Skaven Legendary Lords, Ikkit Claw gets a great deal of scalability in his campaign, because the Skaven economy scales extremely well in this game, largely due to the arcane generators, which significantly buffs the economy of Skaven settlements. Like over here, if I get this province to tier 5, I'll get quite a significant amount of income. Now, here's the thing. You have a scalable economy. You have a lot of suitable climates which encompass the vast majority of territory on the campaign map. The only unpleasant ones are the Chaos Wasteland and the Frozen Territories. Uninhabitable are Lorem basically, and Noctilus's starting territory. and Ulthuan, but the vast majority of the game world can be colonized one way or another without it being uninhabitable. There's a lot of power because of that. So Skaven are a great race. They have a great deal of versatility in their rosters, in their lords, and their heroes. They have so many hero choices. It is absolutely ridiculous to count for all of them. They are absolutely insane with respect to all of those things. Here's the thing, though. Ikkit Claw has a lot of issues in the early game because of where he starts. This has always been an issue for him. Estalia has never been a great location to conquer as the Skaven, especially now in Warhammer 3, because you have to deal with Mogr, who's going to take over the settlement. You're probably going to end up in a war with him. You have complications over here. And even if you take over all of this territory, well, this province isn't that great to hold, and you're just opening up a border with Carcassonne. But if you ignore Mogr and go for Tylea, that exposes you to Belegar. So it is generally better as Ikkit Claw to... You can conquer Tylea, but defeating Belegar is a pretty tall order. Your best bet is to come over here and deal with Rapans and deal with Arkan the Black. But it's certainly a messy early game. But late game, Ikkit Claw is ridiculously good. He gets a loyalty to new recruits +2, which is always great in a long campaign, 20% research rate, and gains access to the Clan's Crier Forbidden Workshop. He also gets a -40% construction cost for engineering buildings, but that's not too important, I'd argue. In terms of his Lord effects, he gets a -50% upkeep for weapon teams, which do include Globadiers, Bombardiers, Poison Wind, Mortars. And his special skill line gives him cooldown to all spells, the Brass Orb ability, upgraded, he already can use it, loyalty for Warlock Masters, and hero capacity for Warlock Engineers. And having more Engineers is always great. And then he gets the concentrated flame ammunition, increased range and anti-large, and 12% missile strength. And then he also gets recruit duration, -1 turn for Doom Flayers and Doom Wheels, and recruit rank. But his main benefit, and this is what makes him so very strong in a long campaign, though I personally prefer Snitch, but Ikkit Claw certainly is a campaign more tailored towards the endgame. The reason he's better than Snitch perhaps in a late game is because he gets a right over here that gives him the Scheme of Doom, which Snitch doesn't have access to, so he can get a lot more engineers than Snitch can. But the real benefit in an Ikkit Claw campaign is the Forbidden Workshop. You have nuclear weapons, upgraded nuclear weapons. They do a lot of damage, they can give you replenishment, they can give you warp fuel when you use them. On top of that, you can upgrade the weapon teams, the Doom Wheels, and the Doom Flayers. And when we're talking about weapon teams, we're talking about Poison Wind Mortars, Globadiers, Bombardiers, and Warp Grinders. The Warp Grinder situation is actually pretty damn insane because you're looking at upgrading their melee attack, you're looking at upgrading their damage resistance, and also giving them the Witness Me ability for allies in range. If HP is less than 50%, they're gonna buff that damage resistance by quite a bit, and they're also going to get regeneration, which is pretty insane. And these units, by the way, the Warp Grinders, they have Wall Breaker. You can also upgrade the Flamethrowers. You can make a Skaven army with a high level of armor, which makes it really good. And Auto-Resolve, which is actually a problem Skaven generally have in their campaigns. Now, Jezzails and Railing Gunners aren't so great right now, but you do have various options in your campaign as Ikkit Claw in the long term. It's just the early game is terrible, but if you overcome that, and you do have various options to overcome that. If you overcome that, you're going to end up in a very dominant position on the campaign map. When it comes to victory conditions, you do need to eliminate Estalia, Carcassonne, Tylea. Tylea is always going to be eliminated by Sartosa. In long term, you need to hold certain specific settlements. But if you overcome those issues, if you take over that territory, if you eliminate those factions, and you build up a massive empire, my suggestion is to come over here, take all these 3 provinces, and also take the Great Desert of Araby. Whether or not you continue over here, or you come back over here to deal with Belegar and everything else, that's your decision, but you do have some options. Like, you can do what I did in this campaign, which is take Estalia itself, or you can ignore Estalia and take Tylea. Basically, keep sack this element again and again, and then go over here as Aranessa is showing up, and beat Aranessa to the capital of Tylea. though doing so will leave you exposed to Belegar, so just keep that in mind. You could also decide to pick a fight to Belegar, but that's not really a recommended course of action, because Belegar is actually protecting you from what's far, far worse to deal with, which is the entirety of Avaloran. So it can be an issue if you do decide to pursue this course of action. I'd say taking over Estalia can be the safer, less annoying option if you decide to go for it. Anyway, Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.